Hey, this is Jeff from the Humans Connecting team. Our podcast is all about serving, supporting, challenging, and inspiring you to become a connected human. The content of our podcast is of a general nature, and consuming this content is not the same as seeking individual advice from a connection mentor, registered mental health professional, or coach. Conversations about human connection address loneliness. We destigmatize loneliness here at Humans Connecting. We do that by talking about loneliness openly. Loneliness conversations include a range of topics, which at times may be difficult for us to talk about, to hear, or to sit with. If throughout our conversation this is true for you, we encourage you to please contact a mental health hotline. The link in the episode description can help you find some immediate support from many places you may be in the world. Our advice to you is this: meet yourself where you are and how you are right now. If you don't feel up to it, we'll be right here when you're ready. We're glad you're here.
What if spending quality time in your garden at a local park or in a national park or even with a single potted plant could help you heal and improve the quality of the connection that you feel? Would you do it? While it does sound too good to be true, I suspect that you would give it a go because that's the type of curious and intrepid human that you are. In this episode, we're going to be diving into the science that says that spending time in nature restores us, heals us, and helps us feel more connected. It's time to talk about how nature and nature-based therapy can hold the key to your healing and connection. Hello, it's Phil. Welcome to the Humans Connecting podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Humans Connecting podcast. I'm Phil McAuliffe. I'm a speaker, author, and connection mentor. I'm also the founder of Humans Connecting, and I'm your host for this podcast. At Humans Connecting, we destigmatize loneliness and help you improve your social health and the quality of the connections that you feel in life. So if you've decided that it's time for a change, whether that's because you've been experiencing loneliness or you're learning about the importance of being socially healthy for your well-being, we are here for you. No matter what you do for work, how you identify as a human, or where you are in the world. You can explore all of our services at humansconnecting.org. I wanted to share this content, the content of this episode since 2018, and the stars have finally aligned. My interest in nature-based therapies, including forest bathing, which is Shinrin-yoku in Japanese, where the concept comes from, began after I experienced a deep sense of calm during a run, of all things, through the trees of Wellington's Mount Victoria. You might be familiar with those trees, even if you haven't been to Mount Victoria in Wellington, because those trees also appear as Hobbiton Woods in the Lord of the Rings movies. After the run, I dove into research about forest bathing and started developing some ideas for content to help us feel more connected. But the timing never felt right. And over the years, I saw occasional articles and podcasts like NPR's Life Kit and considered reaching out to the experts, who were being interviewed in that content. Then in 2024, my story of loneliness and the insights that we share about loneliness and human connection through Humans Connecting formed part of a story on loneliness and human connection that appeared in Science magazine. Also quoted in that article was our guest for today's episode, Dr. Nerkez Opacin. He said some really insightful things, and I was thrilled to learn that he was in Melbourne. So I connected with him on LinkedIn. Now, if that part sounds like I handled it totally coolly and professionally, think again. I went into full fanboy mode. But I recovered myself, and he had the good grace to see past my fanboying, and we chatted over Zoom a few times a few weeks later, and then connected over multiple coffees and meals in Melbourne back in November 2024. So, who is Dr. Nerkez Opacin? He's a research fellow and community engaged scholar at RMIT University in Melbourne. He's a passionate researcher specializing in community engagement, nature based solutions, social connections, and post conflict recovery. His work bridges program development, social research, project evaluation, and higher education. His current research with the RECETAS Project focuses on nature-based social prescribing, analysing and testing intervention programs that support at-risk populations. Nerkez collaborates with scholars, local communities, and civil society organisations to deliver impactful research that informs practice, guides program design, and influences policy. His work fosters engagement, connection, and social transformation with a commitment to building resilience in diverse and vulnerable communities. I'm really glad that you're here for this episode because in this episode, you're going to experience the lightness and beauty that comes from talking about loneliness and building connections with a nature-based lens. And you're going to learn how nature therapy can benefit you, and you're going to get outstanding advice and how you can enlist nature's support to help you move through your next loneliness experience. So, from that awkward fanboy moment to now calling him a friend, I can't wait for you to join this conversation, for you to meet Dr. Nerkez for this conversation that I feel could change your life. Dr. Nerkez Opacin, welcome to the Humans Connecting podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
It's such a, I have to say, like there's so many things about loneliness and human disconnection that can kind of, I don't know about you, but weigh me down. And there's a heaviness to it that can sometimes feel oppressive. One of the things that I love about what we're going to talk about today is that this actually feels light. It
Mm.
feels like energizing, just sitting with the concept of it. For me, at least, I'm not quite sure about you, listener and viewer, but for me, at least, it feels like almost literally a breath of fresh air.
Mm. I like
How does
that.
it, before we get into, the introductions and stuff, and you can, tell the world how awesome you are in your intro. How does like working on this feel for you? We're just going to go straight into it before coming back to the before the intro.
Yeah. You really summed it up quite well. Working in this area from this perspective is like a breeze of fresh air. And what we are trying to do is also to make it quite a positive experience, and yeah, maybe not talk too much about loneliness when we're doing it along the way,
Yeah,
but directly address it, but without talking about it too much.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It goes to a point, and I'm just trying to think. Like I'm recording this, I've written it, but it hasn't been published yet. But when this episode drops, it would have been published. But speaking about goes to feeding connection, and when we feed connection, we starve loneliness, just kind of by default. And this is like a 7-course degustation menu for connection.
Mhm.
It feels like loneliness does not stand a chance
Mhm.
through nature-based therapies as a
Mhm.
way of helping us connect. I'm really glad that you feel that too, because I'd hate to be like alone in that. Well, I'm okay with being alone in that, but for me at least, it does feel just like so like calming and refreshing and lovely.
Mhm.
Um, So yeah, thanks for going with me on that. It's been lovely to have you on. No, uh, Nerkez, I've read your intro, your bio, but I'm really curious. Like, who are you? Like, big fundamental question for you. Like, who are you? How did you get to be
Hmm.
here, like speaking on this episode?
Yeah, thanks. And who am I? Oh, it is a big question trying to answer briefly, but I guess I, as you can tell from my accent, I'm not from Australia, and my homes are back in Europe, belonging to three other countries, Bosnia, Croatia, and also Germany. And then I had this opportunity to do my PhD here in Australia because I wanted to work with a professor at RMIT. And and the topic back then that I did some research on was around post-conflict recovery and peace building and putting or looking at how can we build communities after conflict and so where there are segregated areas and how do we build again connection. So and I was exploring grassroots initiatives to see how they work and as an answer to I guess the incapability of government bodies to really tackle this big issue.
Mm,
So I was interested in learning how grassroots initiatives do that, and uh, and that was my PhD was about that. And but I remember actually, you know, I spent an lockdown in Melbourne, fun times, and and I wrote this chapter. It was one of the final chapters about genocide, and really heavy topics, trauma, mass atrocities, genocide, and I needed a break, and I needed to get out of the house. And the only thing that you could really do in lockdown Melbourne is take a walk, but within your 5K radius. And
mm,
I was very fortunate to live close by a creek, a river, and really nature. And I took a walk. It was a beautiful sunny day, and the birds singing and the green leaves, and it was just a magical day. And I thought to myself, what am I doing? Like, what, uh, like, why am I not doing something with nature? And why does it have to be so difficult in this, in this I guess, area of peace building, but not really directly being aware that even throughout my peace building uh, path of my career, there was a lot of nature involvement in reflecting in nature. But I didn't take it from, I guess, a research point of view to really see its benefits and the value in it. So 3 years later, after this beautiful walk along the Mary Creek here in Narm, Melbourne, I had this opportunity to work on this project called RECETAS, and it's a big EU Horizon 2020 funded project. So 5 million euros have been invested in this project over 5 years and we have 6 pilot cities, and Melbourne was one of those, or still is one of those pilot cities, where we're testing interventions around something called nature-based social prescribing. And and the this social prescribing, I guess part of it is, social prescribing, meaning a non-medical way to tackle, to work with loneliness and 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 to improve quality of life for the people who are affected by it. And data shows many are, and so it's a very timely research. And the nature part of it is we do this in nature, and we are testing and we're looking at what role does nature play in providing a platform to connect and to each other, but also to belong to the place, to each other, and so um, the, the project, and I'm trying now to make it as it's a complex project that involves different steps, but I guess for the audience, just to get an idea of the process of who is involved in this project is so we here at RMIT University are working with other universities throughout the world. There are other 5 pilot cities besides Melbourne who also test those interventions with different at-risk and marginalized communities. So Helsinki would work with aged care, people in aged care facilities, Barcelona in neighborhoods who are disadvantaged, in the city. We here in Melbourne work with the LGBT asylum seekers and refugee communities. So the whole approach is also not just to test something that is called nature-based social prescribing, but also really to open up something that we tend to probably uh, explore more from a Western perspective, but open it up also to disadvantaged groups who might not have the opportunity to be part of something like this, and who probably, if we would put it on a scale, need it the most. And so this this project, there are 3 of our cities conduct a pre-post. So it's a mixed method. We're trying to understand, we give them some surveys to understand the levels of loneliness, quality of life, but also the nature dose. So we developed a survey where we are trying to then learn from the outcomes, like what particular elements of nature work in what way for the individuals. And so the other 3 pilot cities are also using randomized controlled trials. So which also includes, participants who are not in the intervention, so that we can also see, okay, how really what's the role of nature in this whole part, and can the same thing be done just somewhere else? Um, and 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 for now, I guess, and now I just realized I'm immediately talking about this whole project. I moved away from me,
It was
but it's
seamless.
okay. And but yeah, maybe just to go back a little bit, something about me is the value that I learned. This is part of my postdoc, but also I was a researcher before this project, working in, post-conflict, post-genocide societies, and I, as a researcher, felt as well that a lot of vicarious trauma was transferred to me, and then the ways, how do I deal with that also as a researcher? Now here, like we don't really talk about trauma, but it's very like you can't avoid it if in the field, working with such a marginalized community where it's very important to build trust as a researcher. I was also a facilitator in those interventions. So there it was all about building trust. And of course they shared their stories. So there was again a lot of vicarious trauma happening. But this time, I also had the opportunity to directly use the benefits together with my participants to explore nature. So, I'm facilitating, but for let's say we do an activity for 10 minutes, whether it's forest therapy or some other sensory and creative activities in nature. But I would, you know, also have my 5 minutes of like, okay, like let me just um, use it as a therapeutic tool as well. And yeah, so maybe I'll stop here and see if I was with anything
Right,
wrong.
like there are so many things, Nikes, in there that I love. First of all, just starting like at the end there. Um, I just love how, there's the expression physician heal thyself. And one of the things that I notice, and I can understand why when it comes to loneliness and social disconnection, why people working on it keep it well outside themselves because it is heavy. There is that heaviness in it, and if we want to be objective and dispassionate, there needs to be some way of like disconnecting from disconnection, right?
Mm,
But there's a price that's paid for that,
mm.
right? I love how you're just like, in my mind's eye, you're in, in like bushland somewhere,
Yeah.
and you've got a group of people, and you're like, this is the exercise we're going to do. Explain it. Anyone got any questions? Okay, off you go do it, and then you quietly go and do it yourself as well.
So if you want, I can give you just a little, I guess, idea how this looks like, what we are doing as part of this project. So we would meet, depends on the city, from 6 to 8 weeks is one program where we have a group of also again 6 to 12 participants. We have a group of people who wanted and decided to join. There were some exclusion and inclusion criteria, and one of them is that they are, like pretty lonely, isolated, and need to connect as like one of the main criterias. But with our cohort, it was quite simple to meet this criteria, and so we
And just
we
to just for reference, that cohort was uh, queer
queer.
and an asylum seeker or refugee.
Yes, so LGBTIQA plus asylum seekers and refugees who are living in Melbourne, Australia. And they come from all over the world, and also different ages, from 18 to 67, and so we meet once a week. The first week we actually met inside to get to know each other and just to introduce each other. I would introduce myself, the program, and so just remember I'm a facilitator as well. I would have a co-facilitator there that I trained, and preferably uh, th- from Many Colored Sky, which is the organization that we work with, where the members come from, and uh, and then we would introduce the program, share a meal together. Sharing a meal became a very important part of the whole process. We share it in nature, we eat. This is how we start the activity. And then we only really talk about loneliness in the first week directly, where I initiate it, but we do it quite, I guess, in not, I'm missing now the word. Um, just a reminder that English is not my
Like
language.
it's okay. Is it like in an
Indirectly.
overt way?
Yeah, yes. So we do it. I have different pictures that might represent loneliness, and basically I just chose them off the internet myself. There could be like a person just sitting on a beach, but there could also be blossoms, Like it's one that I always choose, because for me, it's not the picture doesn't necessarily have to be like ugly to evoke the feelings of loneliness. It can be a beautiful picture that I miss to share with somebody. Like depends what it evokes really with you. So the pictures serve as an indirect way to talk about loneliness and kind of also depersonalize it, because it gets confronting if I would now just be like, okay, let's talk about loneliness. Tell me, how lonely are you? And so I put the pictures on the floor and say like, choose one, and then we'll sit back in the circle and talk about it. Why did you choose one? What does it? Why do you? Why does it represent loneliness to you? It doesn't have to be anything related to you, but of course, I mean, by default, you relate it. But it's an indirect way to do it. And so, and we end the first week talking about this, and it's quite emotional. But then I really make sure to promise them, okay, I know this is emotional, but we are here to have fun. Like this also, like, this is an activity for us to connect us, and yeah, often sadness connects as well, and it helps to connect where we feel similar, and we feel we are sharing similar experiences, and it really is a good tool to connect. But we are here mainly to really have fun and explore nature together. And I will never initiate talking about loneliness again until the end of this program, unless you want to. So again, giving them the agency, empowering them to really decide how they want this program to be. I'm again a guide, facilitator, but I would like them to really take over. Eventually, the whole model that we call Friends in Nature is about empowering the participants, and the facilitator is more and more stepping back as weeks progress. So in the first week, also what we do is we have this something called Friends in Nature menu, where they can choose from 15 different locations. Where are we going to go in the next 6 weeks? And they choose the activities, they choose the places, and the majority that chooses, then we go there. But it's not set to stone. We can still change, and they can, if they again feel like, oh, you know what, and this happened. It's very hot today, and I really would like to experience some walking barefoot on the beach next week. Let's do beach, even though it wasn't on the list. So we go to the beach. I mean, it was in the list, but it wasn't selected in the first place. And so then for the remaining time of the intervention of the program, we would meet in nature in different locations. But one of the criteria was that it's accessible, so we do it in the Melbourne metropolitan area. So it needs to be accessible by public transport, and also inexpensive, so that they can also still do this without having big funding backing this up. And
Without
so,
those barriers. Yeah.
yeah. And then, in the nature, when we are in the nature, the imagination is limitless, what we can do, and we would maybe as like one start activity that I love to start with is to have a picnic in the Darabin Parklands here in Melbourne. And I would go to a supermarket and just buy picnic things, but typical Australian picnic things that people in Australia would really consider, yeah, that's a nice picnic. Knowing that the cultures that I'm meeting have a different version of what they think picnic is. But that came also to our mind that we are trying to connect people who are culturally very diverse. They do have similarities, they belong to the rainbow community, and they're asylum seekers or refugees, but that's about it. And even the rainbow community is very diverse. So we needed to be a bit more creative about how do we overcome this cultural difference and still connect, because in the pilot study we realized that sometimes, I guess, just not being aware of these intercultural uh, differences might hinder connection. And so we tried then really to just raise this awareness that we're culturally so different, and let's talk about culture. And food was a great segue into that. And so they bonded in the first week talking about how lame Australian picnic culture is. So, yeah, and and they would like, then one would say like, oh, I remember when I just arrived to Australia and somebody invited me for a picnic and I cooked a stew, and bought like a big pot of stew, and then realized, oh, they just have crackers and cheese and some tomatoes, and and was quite embarrassed about it. But and we had laughs, like laughing. Then that this is where the fun comes, a lot of
Yeah.
laugh, trying to yeah, just have them. But actually now when I'm talking, and I'm saying we, I also forgot to just acknowledge my team here in Melbourne, which is Catherine Johnson, the Dean of the School of Global Urban and Social Studies, Professor Sarah Beckesy as well, and Dr. Nicholas Hill. So they are the my um, chief investigators who are along the way, like giving me advice, and we are together shaping what should be our next steps to do it. So it's not a one man job at all. It takes a team,
Yeah.
and plus many colored sky. It's a co-design method
Yeah.
where we have to work together with organizations, different stakeholders, the community itself, and different experts, like to
Yeah.
try to really look at different angles and to make it work. And then we would do different activities like watching the flying foxes. That's very, very exotic to many people and very different, and especially where I
So
come from.
just in case you don't,
Yeah.
sorry, Nerkez, for those of you who aren't in Australia and have images of foxes, like in the British or European sense, which also are here in Australia, they're a pest, like with wings flying around, flying foxes are bats. They're a
Yeah.
type of bat, and they're quite big, and they travel en masse. Um, they can be a bit of like a natural, like they're supposed to be there, but they love backyard fruit trees.
Mhm.
Um, and feasting on your fruit that you can't eat, sorry, that you can't reach. They love those and stuff, and there's plenty in Melbourne. So that's what a flying fox is.
Exactly.
Not something with a big, like an orange thing, like a dog with a fluffy tail. It's not that.
No, no, and they're very cute, like very big,
Yeah.
and in Europe, the foxes, the bats that we would have are really small. So mostly it's quite an impression. It's quite impressive to look at them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what we do is we time it also to go towards the end of the day when they're just about to wake up and go for their foraging, and going to those fig trees and other fruit trees to
Quiet when
harvest.
they're waking up.
Yeah.
They're very loud when they're waking up. So yeah.
Thinking, yes, and
It's
but it's amazing, and it's one of I mean many favorite activities, but this is one of them as well. And it's situated in a beautiful part of Melbourne, the Yarra Bend Park, and so we first have a little walk along the Yarra, and on a narrow path, and just explore, watch. One of the things that they are doing is also taking pictures. It's part of the data that we're collecting just to understand what attracts them and what kind of pictures they would like to take. And then in the
yeah.
interview, I would talk to them about it, like why did you take it, and trying to understand that. Then we would go and do some bird watching, and what's great also about these activities is we're trying to raise awareness that everybody can do it. Everybody can be a bird watcher. You don't have to be like a nerd who is really knowing all the bits and details about the birds here in Australia. You can just sit on your balcony and still be a bird watcher, And so we what we are also trying to do is really make it yeah, accessible to everybody.
Mm.
Bird
Mm.
watching. Then we would do, yeah, of course, forest therapy as one One of the also very popular approaches, or Shinrin-yoku, as the Japanese call it, and also gardening, community gardening, another very popular activity. So
Yeah.
yeah, as I said, the the imagination is limitless, and
Mm.
sometimes they would just really do different creative and sensory activities such as sniffari and try to like smell different herbs around here and give them names. Sometimes I would have um some experts, who would join me. I mean, I'm not a, nature expert in the sense that I would really know the names and the
Yeah.
use of all the herbs. I just know how to enjoy them. But we would have sometimes experts, like ecologists who would then come along and tell us like what these little berries and herbs are used for and learn about the native plants in Australia, like
Yeah.
because it's about, as I said earlier, if we really are trying to tackle loneliness or work on social connection, we also need to look at the larger picture and maybe start also with connecting to place to feel as if they were belonging to this new land that they are hoping to be their home for the rest of their lives.
There's a few things in all of that, and you've hit upon one of the points that I wanted to come back to, and that's on the concept of belonging. Before, and I just want to flag before we because I've got a question next about forest therapy and what does that look like. But there's so many things in there, and goes to that whole lightness of engaging with something so heavy in like the natural environment. And there's a few things there that I just for the listener that I want to come back to in what you've shared so far, Nikes. One of the things that I remember, and in the introduction, I said that you and I were in the science article, and it was a result of that I reached out to you and kind of had this fanboy moment, and was just like, oh my God, like he's in Australia and in Melbourne, um, and you had this line in there, and I tried to go back into the article, but it's behind a paywall, and in the science article. But in my memory, and you might be able to remember this better than mine, but do you remember what you said about um, like what we're at risk of in solving loneliness?
Mm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I probably was hinting towards it already earlier. What I said is like when if we want to look at loneliness, yes, it's not just about looking at different parts of life, but also what kind of communities are we addressing, and we tend to again focus on Western societies, on advantaged groups, and tend to forget the disadvantaged communities, and who equally and arguably sometimes more are susceptible to it. And
Hmm.
yeah, and so with this whole project, again, the whole really aim is also to give voice to the disadvantaged.
I love that. That was the thing that because loneliness is a universal human experience, and there's so many things that have been done to date with the best of intentions. But now that we're knowing better, we get to do better. And um, the impression that I still have from your quote in that awesome article
Yeah, it was a great.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You should
We're
look
at
it up.
real
Yeah.
risk of solving loneliness for white people.
Mm, yeah.
And because many of the like the measures of loneliness to date, and there's an awful lot of people like our friend Dr. Hans Rocha Iserman from Anossi Behavioral Science Lab, who has been on the podcast and we do work with here at Humans Connecting. They're like trying to find better ways at measuring loneliness universally, like globally, for humans wherever they are, and whatever their income and things and the moving parts that factor into that. And it's tried to, I guess, I don't know, like solve a Rubik's cube in like anyway, and it's a riddle wrapped in an enigma in a mystery, and I'm glad that people very smart are doing their thing. But that line like just cuts straight to it in such a great way, and I just wanted to sort of not dwell on that for a moment. But the other thing in there was the work that you're doing as part of the wider team at RMIT, and shout out to the team at RMIT. Thank you for doing your fantastic work. But also the team globally as part of the RECETAS project. And listener, viewer, if you've been around the Humans Connecting podcast, or know me personally, you know that I love my words. You know that I love language. And recetas is actually it's an acronym, isn't it? But from Spanish, or is it from Catalan? Because it's out of Barcelona.
Oh, that's a good question. I
We've
don't
got
know, but
people listening at in Barcelona yelling at the speaker. We can't hear you, but write in what the acronym means. But receta and recetas in
Mm,
Spanish is literally recipe.
yeah.
Like one recipe, receta, recipes, recetas. And so the acronym, it's so clever. It's so clever. Like the team, multidisciplinary, like global, are looking at finding the recipe for connection. I just love that. I love
Yeah,
that. No, I didn't want to let that go because like the language nerd in me was just like, this is really cool.
it
And I
is.
wanted
It
I
is.
wanted to like highlight that.
It is. It's our main director, project director, Professor Jill Litt, came up and actually uh, designed this whole idea and got together all this big team with from various disciplines and experts working on the field in the field of nature, connection, loneliness, health, economics, to really tackle it from different angles
Which is
to get the right
absolutely,
recipe and the
absolutely listen.
ingredients.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. A little bit of connection, a little bit of economics, and stir it a bit, and co-design and stuff. That was the other thing I really wanted to come back to was the co-design of it.
Mm.
And I really do like that because it means that um, for want of a better term, the teachers are also students and the students are also teachers. And it has this beautiful kind of leveling where it's the humans bringing their skills and experience, some with different skills, some with different levels of experience, some with more experience than whatever, like, their unique blend of awesomeness coming together to in that lovely word of like co-design. It's a very LinkedIn word, but it's it's a great kind of concept there, particularly when it's something like connection, how humans connect, where humans connect, what it means, and all of these kind of big variables that we're all learning at the same time, teaching and learning at the same time. This is why I love it. But the thing that I really wanted to come back to was that concept of belonging. And if you've been around here on the Humans Connecting, like in Humans Connecting, I wrote, and the team and I published an article on the blog that dropped in late November 2024, which incidentally at time of recording is this week, but this will be coming out in February 2025. But it is all about how belonging is the key to it all. Cultivating feelings that we belong in places and spaces, that we belong in ourselves, that we belong when we're with others who are most important to us and in community, that really, that's it. That's the answer. The answer to loneliness is to cultivate belonging. So forgive me, Nerkez, for just a moment, but in case you haven't read it, it's this. We know, happily, we know that the answer, that the antidote to loneliness is connection. We know that. Like, your loneliness doesn't stand a chance. There's been another article on the blog that's like, that's all about feeding connection starves loneliness, right? So feed connection. Connection is the antidote to loneliness. But how do we know that we're connected? And we can't help but feel connected when we feel that we belong. So it's impossible to feel disconnected and belong. It's impossible to feel connected and not belong. So how do we feel that we, like the equation then becomes, how do we feed belonging? And the amazing Dr. Brené Brown has summarized this in a way that lay people like me can understand. And we feel that we belong when we feel seen and when we feel heard. And when we see and we hear other people, other places, other spaces, that's how we feed belonging. And it is fundamental. It is fundamental to feeling that we're connected. One of the things so many things that I love about what you're doing, Nerkez, and what you're involved with. Thing that I love most is the thing that matters most, and that's belonging. How can we help humans feel that they belong where they are, how they are, and who they're with? This is the thing that really like warms me, gives me hope.
Yeah.
We know the answer. We know the answer. Feed belonging.
Yeah.
How we do that, that's where the fun thing is.
And we are currently, in the data analysis phase. So we finished with the data collection, and I am now coding and sitting at my desk and trying to make sense of all these different sources that are just like a storm directed towards me. And I would add one theme that is quite important in regards to belonging, and like what you said, like what is that we feel, what do we need to feel so that we belong? Yes, heard. I would add safety as well, as like some reoccurring theme that is happening, at least with our cohort, like who were feeling disconnected for since their existence, like and very unsafe throughout their journey to finally arrive to Australia. But the feeling of not being safe still remains. And so, how do we build that as well so that they can
Yeah.
really feel safe and to belong?
Yeah. Yeah. Very good point. And it is hard. Like the equation is simple. It's really simple to say, but when we kind of go to do it, like it's hard to be seen as the authentic, glorious, messed up human that we are. It's
Mm.
hard to be seen as we are in that moment if we do not feel safe.
Yes.
It's hard to speak up and be heard as we are in that moment, like glorious, messed up, kind of confused, don't really know what words to say, don't really know how to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's hard
Mm.
to do that. It's hard to be vulnerable,
Mm.
which is, an important ingredient to belonging. You can't have like belonging without being vulnerable. Damn it. Um, And yeah, so that safety is absolutely. I love that point. Well made. Nerkez, I've got a question for you in terms of like nature therapy, but I'll ask it just after this quick break.
Have you ever been with someone, perhaps it's been with your partner, or maybe while you're at work or out with a group of friends, and despite having people around you, you just feel disconnected? And this is an incredibly common experience, one that I've certainly had many times. And when these things happen, we often don't really know what to do about it. Or worse, we think there might be something wrong with us for having that experience in the first place. Hi, this is Pete from the Humans Connecting team. And if you've experienced what I'm talking about, then you might find our Connection Starter course really helpful. See, these feelings, they're all just expressions of loneliness. And before I did the course, I didn't even realise I was lonely.
Nerkez,
And I certainly didn't see these feelings as an invitation to discover how I could become more connected to myself, more connected to my people, and more connected to the things that I'm most passionate about in my life.
And I
Now, the
apologize
course
for
itself
using those
is made up
terms
of a series of
interchangeably.
self-led
Forest therapy,
videos,
nature therapy.
a comprehensive workbook, and a
Can you give us
handful
an
of external
example
resources,
of
all lovingly
what
led
that
and
looks
supported by Phil and
Yeah,
the team
sure.
here
So
at Humans Connecting.
it's
By the end of it, you'll have your
like
very own
another
personalised connection
really
plan that is
unexpected,
specifically
but
tailored
so
to you
glad
and
that
your
this
unique
opportunity
connection needs.
came
Look, it's made
towards
a
me
huge impact
is
on my life. So
I,
if you're curious
you know,
about
like
improving the
one of our
connections in yours,
stakeholders in
jump over to
Japan, they
humansconnecting.org and under the
offered
products menu,
to
click on
provide
the
us with a
Connection
forest
Starter
therapy
course
training so that we can
because
include
you
it
are
in the study.
absolutely worthy of
Because
it.
I just thought, okay, I'm gonna do it. Like I'm the facilitator already. I need to get this training done, and it's 6 to 1 year training, and it's quite intensive, but a lot of fun. To try to yeah, equip you to be a therapy guide. And now I'm certified and accredited with the help of this research, which is amazing. And I guess again here I will go back to the science article and the hidden agenda also why we had this opportunity to train me is to offer something seemingly and probably usually more available to the Western society, the yeah uh, white folks to experience, to explore, to benefit from, and forest therapy is an evidence-based approach that many research has been done about it for years, and it really has a wide range of benefits for your well-being, like for and directly for your health, like I don't know. Now the guide would also talk about it at the beginning, but like reducing your heart rate, boosting your immune system, even anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiviral. So really, there is science behind its benefits for individuals, but there is also huge potential to make it a social uh, uh, for us a social connection activity,
Yeah.
and um, and and so something seemingly Western, uh, we wanted also to offer and open up its doors to with for the disadvantaged groups and see, many of our participants, many of the programs that I had to lead, I had participants who just arrived to Australia 2 months before that and didn't really speak much English. And so I had to be very creative. And how do we make this work without using much words? And so that was another addition to the challenge, like, okay, now if you focus on forest therapy, how do I do it with creative ways of communicating? And it works, you just really simplify the language, and sometimes you just show it. You don't have to necessarily even speak much. The forest therapy, for example, also when earlier when I said that I'm very happy to had this fortune to now be part of research around the benefits of nature and but both, like currently it's about us connecting and healing with the help of nature as a platform, but I always look at it as a reciprocal transaction, where we as well with this awareness want to take care better of nature. And so me as a researcher who has now the opportunity to also heal myself, like if there is some distress happening even during research, and as a forest therapy guide, I also have to practice something called a sit spot on a regular basis, like where I just sit in nature and just be, and notice and observe and be curious and explore, and feel and yeah, and so on. And 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 that's part of forest therapy, like as a 2 to 3 hour long activity has different segments that you do in nature, and one of them is to do a sit spot. It's towards the end, and and it just wants you to be, and and it's deliberately designed to be at the end. I mean, the last part is the tea ceremony, the Japanese inspired tea ceremony. But before that, it's designed to also be towards the end, because until that point, we really tuned in with our senses. And it's all about really being present and aware and looking at, uh, 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 at nature through a different angle, and
Mhm.
and really be in touch with um, yeah, your senses, and
So is there just for the listener and the viewer, is there something that you could suggest to offer that, depending on, on the presumption that someone has something of the natural world near them, and they might not, live on the, to like backing onto a nature reserve where, there's pristine bushland or pristine forests and, deers and antelopes playing and things like that. But, they might have a local park, they might have a backyard, they might have a pot plant in their house. They might have some of those super cool, funky monsteras that everyone seems to have now. Um, and shout out to Jeff who cultivates our monsteras. I just get to look at them. And how do we, like, is there something that you can suggest that that the person listening and viewing can incorporate as a kind of a therapeutic practice?
yeah. Uh, I mean, definitely, if you can, I would suggest having a forest therapy session, and with guides. You can even contact me, and then we can see what we can do about it. But if you don't have access, like to maybe a guide who can lead you through this journey, and it's recommended to do this once a month to really like have the benefits on your health as well. But my sit spot is on my balcony. Like I remember when I did the training, um, I tried at the beginning, to do a sit spot in a closed park, and I live currently in Brunswick in Melbourne, and I guess it's not as green as my previous area, and then it's a bit challenging to have a quiet park close by, because they're just like constructions everywhere and it looks a bit more like a concrete jungle. So I tried the park and then realized, oh my God, it's a bit more stressful than relaxing. So I think I need to change the location. And it's fine, like you look for your spot. And currently really my spot is my balcony. And there's one tree in front of it that nests many different birds, that with time you notice that they notice you. and that's the beauty about realizing that we are part of this nature and not above it or disconnected from it. And beauty about this project as well is that the participants realized that, and especially through the forest therapy activity, one of them is meet a tree as if you would meet a friend, and then I would tell them how they could do it, like take a look at the tree, find your tree, know also very certainly that the tree is going to tell all the other trees that they just met you because they're all connected through their root system as a wood wide web, and so it's like and some of the reflections from this activity particularly were also beautiful, like where where the beauty about nature, and now this is maybe something that yeah, I'm like from the findings is especially with cohorts or participants, who feel marginalized, not seen, not heard, judged, not safe, is that nature provides a non-judgmental space for you to be, and imagining as if you would meet a friend and it's a tree is equally powerful, and as if you would meet a human, and I love that this project also gives you this direction, and then but you still do it also with other people. So there is this communal part of it constantly happening, and so the reflections from them were also like, oh, actually, it's so beautiful, like that I can, yeah, maybe somebody right now that I would like to talk to is busy, like, but I really would like to connect. And I can also connect with nature. I can go and visit my tree again and just have a talk,
Mm.
and see how the trees day has been as well, and listen,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that's really beautiful. And I do that sometimes with my tree in front of my balcony, and then also the pot plants, as you said, like
Yeah.
I on my balcony as well have several, like there's a passion fruit that was very temperamental at the beginning when I planted it and really didn't want to grow, and I was quite distressed about it. I'm like, what am I doing? What's happening? And then I realized a gardener told me like, oh yeah, they can be a bit temperamental, and I'm like, oh, that's so cute, actually. Okay, let me try to find what it wants, and it really, I did. I just moved it to a different place, and now it's thriving, and then watching seasons change and just having a regular sit spot opens up so many possibilities to awareness of change, and actually to value change, and yeah, and then eventually you just do it wherever you are, like if you make it a constant, and it doesn't have to be a long thing. It can just be 5 minutes. You don't have to really now do, but it's important, like to have less of the screen time and allow more of the green time.
Oh, there's a few things there that you've like, they feel practiced, but but also like, the Wood Wide Web and more green time, less screen time. I do like that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, there's a couple of things there, and I'm just sort of thinking, and I want to share this for you, listener and viewer as well. But so every morning, even when it's really cold here in Canberra, I walk to the gym. And it's about 2.5 Ks, so 2.5 kilometers from our house to the gym. And so I walk there, work out, and then walk home. 10,000 steps, 12,000 steps, that kind of stuff. It gets my movement in for the day. And it's like before I get on with my day and show up in support of humans globally, like it's important to me. On my way there is a grove of, I can't even guess how old they are, but these gum trees They are enormous. I could not put my arm around them. And they're kind of old, they're twisted, they're like kind of a bit scraggy looking. They're like you could just tell that they've lived a life. They've, withstood storms. I'm gonna say for a couple of 100 years. I'm not an expert at all, but it feels to me like they're a couple of 100 years old. Some are in people's backyards and they're not allowed to do anything with them because they're heritage listed. And one of the things about gum trees, if you're not familiar with them, they drop branches. Without warning, they drop branches. It's terrible if your car's parked under them. It's really bad if you're camped under them. And in storms or whatever, in campgrounds, people have been killed. But be that as it may, and just sort of do that cautiously. But one of the things is that the branches are hollow. So when they fall, they create hollows. And those hollows are where possums live. Those hollows are where birds nest. And these trees, and there's probably like 4 or 5 of them, but there's one particularly that's my favorite. Don't like to play favorites too often, but this tree is my favorite. Like it's kind of like bumpy and like the bark is all a bit bumpy and like gnarled and stuff. And I love it because it's lived and living a life and it's just there. But other animals, other creatures find home in there. It's like a big apartment building of possums and cockatoos and rosellas and magpies. And, it is just there. It's there on my way to the gym. It's there on my way home from work. And, we've, one of our first phone calls after like fanboy moment, I shared that with you.
Yeah.
And I said, I kind of, say very quiet out of the corner of my mouth, good morning, hello. So I act a bit cool. But it is like I love it. And just the other day, Jeff and I were riding our bikes past there.
Mm.
And it occurred to me like the bark on the trunk, and not so much bark, but like the it's very smooth. But it's about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 shades of grey. And like it's perfect. It's perfect. And one of the things, if you don't use Canva, one of the things, I'm colorblind. Okay, I'll share that. So colors like, red and green for me. If it's a red dot on a green background, a red ornament in a Christmas tree, I need to shake the Christmas tree so the red ornament moves, and then I see it.
Yeah.
But what you could do is take a photo and then upload it into Canva and then click on it, and Canva gives you the color code for it. And so those of you who are aware, like my glasses are green, and there's also the same green in the background here as well. So that's what we've done. But what I want to do is start incorporating the colors, the grays of my favorite tree into the design that we use here at Humans Connecting, because it just speaks. I find it so calm and restful and just so lovely.
I
I wanted
love
to,
that.
yeah, I just wanted to share that because,
Yeah.
like, you find it on your balcony. I find it like it's just this tree. I don't know how it became my favorite, but it's just a tree that I started to notice every day, would see the animals, would see the baby magpies. Interestingly, the postie, like the person who brings the mail, um, has trained so he doesn't get swooped during mating season. Um, the postie brings grubs and feeds the magpies every day and stuff. So the postie and the magpies in that tree are friends and stuff. I just get such a profound sense of calm and community, and like time marches on, and but all the same reasons that you said, like it's just this, and the tree is just it. It's there, it's showing its scars, it simply is, and one day it will die. and the carbon, the nutrients will go back and like it will break down and all that kind of stuff. And I just love it. I don't know why I find such comfort in it.
Yeah, and I mean I can completely understand why and how and I love the your ability, like to look also at all these details and noticing, and that's exactly what forest therapy is about. Like what you just explained is you were walking, but you probably at many points were just standing there while walking, and you would just stand and pay attention to this tree
Take
and
photos
take
too.
pictures. Yeah, yeah. And so you have a beautiful tree there. Like that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, like when you said before the break that part of the activity would be to walk along, the banks of the Yarra along that narrow path, and people would be encouraged to take photos, and that gives you information about what they're noticing and what's important to them. Many times on very foggy mornings, street light behind it, and so it's backlit through the fog, very dark, but the camera on the phone like shows up and it's like mysterious and spooky and stuff. And I just love it, love it.
Beautiful.
So what I'm like, I think what we're both saying here, listener and viewer, is that this is accessible for you now. Generally speaking, if you can see something, like you can begin to get the benefits of this. You don't have to go to a national park like 6 hours drive away and camp for a week, or whatever. You can if you want, but this is, it's that substitute, like being present without your phone, and probably sounds weird to receive this, but talking to it.
Yeah, exactly. And or you could if it makes you uncomfortable to just be at the beginning, and maybe you're more like a doer who needs to still do something and can't just be. With time, everybody I think can learn just to be, and it's very rewarding. But at the beginning, like you could have a task, but again, deliberately in nature and notice three good things about nature, on your way to the gym or work or wherever you're going to in the morning. And like, it's a task. You're doing something, you're walking, and like, let me now look at three good things about nature in this walk. It can be intentional as well to connect more to nature. Or like one activity also we did is this was uh, again gave us a lot of laughter. It's all about really also for us all the time to create laughter. Laughing together connects again. And so I
Yes.
sometimes really made the monkey and a clown out of myself. I don't know now in English whether you say clown or monkey, but or maybe you can use both. So you try to be funny, and
Cloud. Yeah. Yep.
clown,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I try to come up with things so that we can laugh and or sometimes I get inspired by other people's work. Like for example, again, how to connect would be uh, we before we always open up the space to go now in nature, we have a warm-up activity. Like we just check with it. We stand or sit in a circle and just check with each other. And we ask different questions. It could be like, "How are you today?" or "Name three good things that happened to you during last week," or like very simple, just to see how is everybody and are we ready to now explore and have fun. And then in one of those activities, I gave them like a task, like, okay, now while we're walking to this destination, I would like us to have an awe walk, you know. And they're like, "Oh, walk? What's an hour walk?" And I mean, remember also, English is not the first language for anybody, including myself there. So, and then I demonstrate. I'm like, like look, like like just and everybody started laughing, like and just like and it was a great laughing matter. And I'm like, okay, let's see if this will work. Maybe it won't even work. It's okay also to make mistakes. Not everything works. And so we started the walk, and then it was a bit awkward at the beginning, like how what do people don't know what to do. And then because the part was also to take pictures, of something they find interesting or not interesting. Actually, I didn't want to limit them to only interesting. But then, like you just see somebody says, and take a picture. I'm like, you just did it. You just did it. See, and then suddenly, like you see the hue, like it was a beautiful day of the sun was setting, the colors, and it was just magical, and I'm like, and then everybody is like with the same thing, like, and then they take also the picture of it. Like, yeah, there are these if you're not just somebody who likes to be and sit and do
Yeah.
nothing, you can also challenge and give a little activity to the nature.
So I've written down two exercises: meet the tree, and an like the Marvel sort of and I love it because initially I thought you were saying or like AWE, and I'm like, actually, how interesting it is that they sound the same. And like one sound conveys the other.
Yeah,
Part of my walk to the gym, like in the middle of winter, it's still very, very, very dark, sometimes very frosty. I can look up and I can see the Milky Way straight through it, as if I
yeah.
could reach out and touch it. Or
Oh, yeah,
um,
yeah.
I can't take a photo of that because how do you capture that enormity of it? But I have been known to stand very still and just sort of take in the silence before I'm like, it's really cold. I need to keep moving and stuff. But like, just such a privilege. Like people say, living in Canberra is boring or whatever. I say, what a treat, what a joy that I can be in the nation's capital and see like our galaxy as it like clear as anything, as if we're in the middle of nowhere. It's beautiful. Nerkez, in looking to reluctantly wrap this up because this is just so full of like wisdom and amazingness, and I feel just like me, the listener and the viewer is going to keep on coming back to this episode. The listener and the viewer is going to be sharing this episode far and wide because it is so accessible. It's so like common sense, and I feel that we know innately, despite like the data, the amount of information that you're going through and coding and all of that kind of stuff. I feel that, we as humans innately know this. We've sometimes forgotten.
Mm,
Um, and it's about reconnecting with what's innate. And I feel
beautifully said. Mm,
yeah. And I just feel, it's great that you're doing all your work, and thank you so much for you and the team for doing your work and how you're doing it. Um, as like proof of what we already know. And might need a bit of a reminder.
mm,
This is it's one of those things that in sharing it is so accessible. It's such an accessible way to help ourselves feel more connected when we're having a tough day and we're feeling kind of a hint of sort of maybe potentially just being a little bit lonely. And it's so accessible for others to help feed their connection too. But you've heard a couple of episodes already of the podcast, I know, so this might not be a surprise question, but this is not a question that I put to that I send in the email, like here's some ideas to talk about. But the question is, what piece of advice can you give to a person listening or watching now who's experiencing loneliness to take a step towards connection? What's a piece of advice that you can give?
mm. It's kind of like this $1 million question, and or probably, I mean, most certainly, there are many answers to that question. But I think being open to explore, and I personally found nature to be profoundly important in this space. and and it opens up possibilities, and sometimes we maybe do it alone, and but we can still connect with nature on a level that is not necessarily just us being alone. It's we are part of nature and nature is part of us. And so being open to this possibility, I think could be a first step, and I know that it takes more than that, and we humans innately want more than that, and and eventually, yeah, hopefully you can get more, but but it but connection to nature I found to be very rewarding, and yeah, and it opens up possibilities for probably other connections along the line.
Love that. I love that. It's a great first stop, first step.
Yeah,
And yeah, being open to what can be next.
yeah, and I mean, like I have like so much respect for my participants, and I feel for them, like they without them this research wouldn't be what it is today. And I'm really hoping that we can actually contribute and give back what we're doing, because this research is really for the community, and especially the most marginalized, the lowest of the lowest. And I know, like that if I ask them if they like how they feel, and they they're not necessarily less lonely, after those programs, and it's difficult to answer it. Some say, yes, I am less lonely, definitely. Some say, well, now I am. I talk to you, but maybe tomorrow I still will be. But something that constantly repeats is saying, I might not be less lonely now, but I'm more brave. And 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 this opens up possibilities for connection, and in other spaces as well. And if we provided this possibility, this opportunity for other connections, then we moved a step forward. And it's just a piece of a puzzle. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying we will invent the wheel, but it's a puzzle that
Yeah.
will put it hopefully eventually i- together. And so, our main partner, Many Colored Sky, already sees change within their community with the help of our programs, which is amazing already evidence that it works. So for us, it's very exciting to see some impact already on them and wanting to continue, like, so they asked me now to continue volunteering for them, to bring them to nature, like, can we just continue doing it even? And for me, it will be easier because now I don't need to collect the data. I can just really
Just be
have
there.
fun even more myself, and it will. I'm very curious how this next step is going to be. But I know that these people, it looks like, are more brave, are more, courageous, and willing to get up in the morning and get out of the house, even though it's very difficult sometimes, even though
Yeah.
it's, when depression takes over, when the anxiety takes you, it's very difficult to even get out of the bed. And I know that this is the reality for so many people.
Yeah.
But like somehow with this program, we managed sometimes to motivate them to do that. And there's the possibility,
Yeah.
and so, yeah,
It's
baby.
simply, it's simply beautiful. And listener, viewer, you are braver and more courageous than you will ever give yourself credit for. You are braver and more courageous than you will ever give yourself credit for. And what Nerkez is saying there is that he is seeing evidence that people are, through direct feedback, people are, maybe not having their loneliness cured. And remember, we never want our loneliness cured because it's telling us something very important, that we need connection. And you never want to cure it. You want to understand it. But to understand it, we need to start taking steps to understand it. And that takes bravery and courage. So if you're at that point where you recognize that loneliness has been playing a role, an unwelcome role in your life, it's an invitation for you to feed connection, because that's what your loneliness is telling you, that you're missing. You're missing some kind of connection that's important to you. And it takes bravery and courage to explore what that can mean. And Nerkez is giving you a gift there and reminding us all that we are brave and courageous. And sometimes that bravery and courageous is not, rescuing children from a burning orphanage. It's not that at all. Sometimes it's not just getting out of the bed. Sometimes it's not just getting out of the house. Sometimes it's getting out of our own heads and being present where we are. That's the gift. It's not fun. It's not easy, but sometimes it's fun. And sometimes it gets to be easy too. But it always takes bravery and courage. Nerkez, I've got a feeling that you might have other people who, like me, start, fanning over you and being groupies. How can people find you if they want to connect with you?
So you can just Google my name, and unfortunately or fortunately, it's the only one you can find. You will immediately find me. I don't know if like you can see it here for the ones who are watching it, and probably it will be written down. So my full name.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes as well.
So you can. I have a profile at RMIT with directly my email, or you can connect to me via LinkedIn. If you're more interested about the project as well that we're working on, RECETAS, you can also find it through my profile. And yeah, feel free to connect. And I'm more than happy to explore this field of nature-based solution even further, and for the benefits of both nature and humans.
Nerkez, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I want to say something that I wanted to say earlier. And thank you. Thank you, not just for appearing on this episode, but thank you for following the curiosity. And listener and viewer, you'll know that this is a repeated theme. People who have had on this, on the podcast in the past, they've followed their curiosity, even though it's been uncomfortable. So Nerkez, you were doing your doctorate and on a really heavy topic about how to heal societies torn apart by genocide, and sitting with really horrible stories and experiences that humans have gone through. And your response, perhaps innately, but there was something you recognized walking along Merry Creek in suburban Melbourne actually nourished you beyond, stretching your legs during lockdown. It nourished you, and you had the courage to follow through on the curiosity that sparked from that little moment. And so not only are you awesome at helping people heal, communities heal from trauma, from horrible trauma, but your own experience, and like from your own experience as well. Like having grown up in Bosnia and Germany as a refugee. Like So many things, so many decision points. I'm so grateful that you decided to keep on at each one of those decision points to follow the curiosity, and that's led you right here. And you have absolutely opened all of us up and poured in some amazing wisdom and insight. Please keep going. Please keep doing that. Keep following the curiosity. And I simply can't wait to find out what you're doing. I simply can't wait for our next coffee when I'm next in Melbourne, next coffee and lunch where we solve the problems of the world and create a few more problems. But I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm so grateful to have met you. And I simply can't wait to see what you do next and how, and more importantly, how you do it because you choose to stay curious.
Thank you so much, Phil. I mean, I'm speechless after this and quite red, luckily.
It is
But
warm. Yeah.
thank you, and thank you for allowing me to talk about it. Like this is my passion, and I'm hope your work is amazing. You know, like in giving this space and platform for discussion and is yeah. Thank you.
Let's keep going. Let's
Yeah,
keep going.
let's keep.
Cheering each other on, but let's keep going. Nikes, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Keep going. Wasn't that just, I don't know. I don't know about you, but my soul certainly feels very nourished. And it just seems like simple in like common sense advice, doesn't it? That for myself, at least, and I'd love to know for you that this, feels really doable and achievable and something that is so like plainly, demonstrably helpful to us as humans, spending some time in nature. So I wanted to recap just some of the things that Nerkez said that you can implement in your life, just in case you didn't get them. So there's three things. The first is that Nerkez said, find a sit spot. And that sit spot is that place where you can go and be. Um, and you can, I don't know, have that at your local park, in a nature reserve near you, or in Nerkez's example, on your balcony, looking at a temperamental passion fruit tree, or like seeing the life that is in the tree and how that tree that can see, like the life in that tree sees you and becomes used to you too. So that's the sit spot. And then the other one is going and meeting a tree. And Nikez suggested this one because sometimes the sit spot can feel really challenging to do. Like going and sitting and simply being can feel overwhelming. And so the going and meeting a tree and, even if it's a, sideways glance like I tend to do, and, a good morning out of the corner of my mouth in a way that no one else hears me, I'm sure the tree hears it. Um, I don't know if the tree hears it, but I'm imagining it that it does. And Nikez, you can call back in if it does or doesn't. But that meter tree, like, and you might be thinking of a tree right now that you see, I don't know, for no particular reason or no discernible reason, that it sticks in your mind. And as you go past it, you notice it. You notice, if it's a deciduous tree, when the leaves are about to pop in spring, and you might enjoy the shade in summer, and you might notice the turning of the leaves in autumn, and the notice the absence of leaves as it hibernates in winter. And yeah, maybe it's time to go and meet that tree, that one that particularly seems to get your attention, and formally introduce yourself to the tree. And then the other one is what I loved, the walk, and that walk is that kind of walk through the natural world where you're just like, oh my, that's amazing. I'm going to take a photo of that. And so that can actually be a good one if, you carrying your phone around, and your phone generally has a pretty good camera on it. And, when you're out on your walks, getting 15 minutes, trying to get 10,000 steps in, whatever it is, and you're connecting with the world around you, which is really important. You can turn those into an walk, where, you see something and you're just like, oh my God, that's amazing. And one of those things, like, you don't have to go too far with that, but I remember seeing something written, and I'm going to mess this up. I'm just going to say it in a lay term, but there's something amazing, like in like a cubic centimeter of like half an inch, I don't know, whatever it is in imperial, but like a cubic centimeter of soil, the number of microbes in that soil, in that sort of cubic centimeter, like it's I don't know, like it's an enormous amount. And what they do and how they come together and how they work together to provide like an environment that a plant thrives, and that plant then photosynthesizes, and primary school science comes to the fore, and it produces oxygen that we breathe, and we get like, and even if you have a tiny pot plant, it's in soil, unless it's hydroponic, but it's in soil. But then you can marvel at hydroponics and how that works, and there's so many things that you can go in your day. I'd love to know, and I'm sure Nerkez would love to know as well, like which one of those three spoke to you, and not only spoke to you, but you went and did. What did you notice? How did it help you feel connected in a way outside of yourself, or even help you connect to yourself? Let us know. That is it for this episode, and what a beautiful episode it was. I hope you're leaving this episode with that kind of, just lovely sense of being, and being connected to something bigger than us, and how just beautiful that feels. Thank you for joining me and Nerkez, and on behalf of the Humans Connecting team, thanks for joining us for this episode. Of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of it, what you got from it, what landed for you, what missed for you, what made you happy, sad, what spoke to you. And so feel free to leave a comment on YouTube or on socials, on the server, the podcast service that you're listening on, or send us an email. All the ways that you can connect with us are in the episode description. Be sure to check our website, humansconnecting.org, for details about how we help support, challenge, inspire you to become a more connected human, and not just yourself, but people in your workplace and in your communities, and how we can all thrive through loneliness and get the connection that we each need and deserve. That's all at humansconnecting.org. And finally, we are here to make a positive social impact. We are a social enterprise, and it's really important that we have a positive social impact. And if you're a business and are looking for ways to support humans to feel more connected, and also want to have a positive social impact, check the link in the episode description and get in touch with us. This partnership or any kind of working together, like this collaboration, could look like advertising on future episodes of the podcast, or I don't know, let's have a chat. And the link to start those conversations are in the episode description. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you, Nerkez, as I said, for just following the curiosity and being you. Thank you to the team at RMIT, the team at RECETAS, for doing what you do. Cannot wait to be able to share more widely what you do. But for now, it is always a privilege to serve, support, challenge, and inspire you to become a more connected human. We'll see you. We can't wait to see you in the next episode.